Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your fans. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Tuesday, September 23rd, the 233rd episode of Shea Station. My goodness, we've talked so much Mets baseball. And when you talk Mets baseball for years, folks, you get used to the story that they write sometimes. We're in the last week of the regular season. The Mets are 4 games over 500, but they are not in playoff position for the first time since the first week of the season. The Cincinnati Reds cleaned up a 4-game mopping of the Chicago Cubs on their home turf to tie us in the standings and leap us in the standings thanks to the head-to-head matchup they hold. With 6 games remaining, the Mets season is potentially on life support. We're going to go over all the probables, where they're headed, who they're playing, and what they need to do to get to October baseball. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly, and joining me for this very important crisis episode of Shea Station is Jerry Blevins. Jerry, how you doing?
I'm good, man. You're right. The life support. It's been on life support, though. Hasn't it felt like that for like 2 months now?
Pretty much. Not a good feeling.
Yeah, man. It's been a wild ride this season. Disappointing. The collapse, slow breakdown. Again, they can salvage it. They still have an opportunity. It's not in their hands anymore, which is the crucial bit. But they can still put a run at this. They can still, they still got to do something to get this right. But the Reds taking over with the head-to-head being, the tiebreaker of record, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and I mean, even if they do make it, the path to going forward is a date with the Los Angeles Dodgers in LA and then going over to Philly if you manage to win that. So the Mets have put themselves in quite the position. And you felt like there was a bit of a turning of momentum potentially. They walked off that last game against the Rangers. They won the series against the Padres, who just punched their ticket to the postseason last night. And then those damn Washington Nationals, who the Mets have now lost 4 of their last 5 matchups against. They're 7-6 against the Nationals, one of the worst teams in baseball this year. And they had won the first game and lost the last 2 in very deflating fashion. We're not going to do too in-depth of game recaps. This is going to be more of a narrative, overarching question episode about this squad. But those 2 losses really felt symbolic of this entire Mets season. Obviously, the biggest stat that I wish would just go away, and we still have 6 games to try and make it go away, is that the Mets are 0-67 when they enter the 9th inning, trailing in a game. And in game 2 of this series, after trouncing their pitching staff in game 1 for a 12-6 win, they are on the brink of losing a Nolan McLean start, something that they've only done once this year. They had made some ugly errors early in this game. The Nationals returned the favor with ugly errors of their own. Yeah, you're facing this Nationals bullpen, which is one of the worst in the league. And down 3-2 in the 9th, you tie the game. Who else is it? It's Juan Soto coming up with an 0-2 bloop single to tie the game at 3, and you're in the driver's seat. A double steal from Lindor and Soto, like they've done so many times this year. 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, tie game. All you need is a ball in play, and most likely you win the game. You end this ugly, ugly streak of losing. And what do the Mets do? They can't put the ball in play. Nimmo and Marte strike out. But then, Jerry, Edwin Diaz gives you the cleanest of clean innings, a 7-pitch, 10th inning with the ghost runner on second base. The Mets are once again in the driver's seat. They have 1st and 2nd, nobody out. Do we bunt? Do we play the situational game? We do not. Francisco Alvarez grounds it to a double play. But then, Jerry, in the 11th, Diaz comes out. Tyler Rogers goes in. C.J. Abrams runs into an out at third base to start the inning. Another gift from a bad team facing a good team. And instead, in the most Mets way possible, all I could do was laugh. I want to know your reaction after this, but all I could do was laugh when I saw Dalen Lyle hit an inside the park 2-run homer for the Nats to take a lead in that moment. The Mets lost that game. They lost the finale of the series as well, thanks to Jacob Young turning into Superman. I just want to get a couple of your thoughts, the emotions watching these games unfold. Have you graduated to full apathy like me, or was it still kind of stunning for you?
I'm glad that you characterize where you are, because it took you a while to get there.
Yeah.
You've been catching a lot of heat. I don't know if you've noticed on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people calling you fake fan.
Oh,
and,
come
because
on.
of your apathy. I just feel like they've earned it. The Mets have earned this from you. The player in me will never die. I still feel like this team's talent can do some magical things, but they deserve what you're giving them. They deserve it. The fan base has had their back all year long. They showed out. They've been an absolute weapon at home because of it, and they don't get it done. The Nationals showed their true colors of what type of team this is. They tried to give the game away multiple times, but the Mets wouldn't take it. But the Mets showed who they are. They had a heroic moment in Soto, in Diaz late in the game, and then they just folded up. I think, we talk a lot about the 2024 Mets, the OMG Mets, the character, the grit that they showed, the fight, figuring out who they are. And we came into 2025 figuring out, like, who is this team? Well, we're 150 plus games in. We have no idea who this team is.
God, that is so true and so crazy to think about.
I think I might even be giving them too much, because they showed us who they are in a sense that they're an incomplete team. They can't string it together. They can't, when their back's against the wall, they just can't come through, man. It's frustrating. Frustration, I think, is the term that I would use for where I'm at. I'm frustrated with losing to teams that you should beat. You're going to get beat by good teams. You're going to run into good pitching performances, but Cade Cavalli he has potential to be a great pitcher. He's got really good stuff. You can't let him shut you down.
No.
And then, Dalen Lyle, you can't let that kid hit the inside the park home run. That shouldn't have gotten to that point.
Right.
So I think frustration is where I'm at. I was okay with taking Diaz out for Rogers. Rogers is an excellent pitcher,
right.
Designed throwing style to get, a double play with runners on first and second, but then they ran out of it, and then you're feeling good about a situation, and it's a tough one. It's frustrating. I think that's the word I'm going to use.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discourse about managerial moves in this series. There's been some questionable Mendoza moves this entire month, really, but the Diaz move wasn't one of them. Rogers is a guy you're supposed to trust. He's a guy that induces soft contact. But it goes beyond this discussion of the stars had star moments. Soto tied the game. Diaz gave you a clean 10th. You're getting those performances. You look up and down this Mets roster. If you go on their baseball reference page, they have 8 hitters that are above league average. They have an entire pitching staff that is above league average in their rotation right now. When you look at the numbers, the bullpen, they have one of the best closers in baseball. The team is good at playing baseball, but sometimes it feels like they are bad at winning. Like they don't understand how to come up late with those moments. And I think that's when you think about good teams this year, they're the teams that beat winning teams, which the Mets have done a considerable amount. So then it goes to, can you clean up against the teams that are beneath you? And the Mets clearly haven't done that. But also, can you win the late game and can you win the one-run game? And it just feels like that entire compilation that I put out on social media the other day of 4 minutes of just close games late that the Mets could not pull out time and time again throughout the entire year. Even when they were 21 games over 500, that was a bugaboo for this team. And the fan in me is going to watch these last 6 games, and I'm going to root for this team, and I'm going to live and die on every pitch and hope that they come out the victor. But my brain is wise enough through years of Mets baseball to know that you can't just flip a switch and fix everything with a week to go in the season. And the other half of my brain knows that any Mets story that involves some sort of late season collapse or some sort of late season skid does not end with, but then the team figured it out and banded together and started to win. Because it sort of just feels like when they scuffle and fall into these deep pits, they are unable to climb their way out. And whether it comes down to leadership, whether it comes down to game management, whether it comes down to clutch performances, you can point your finger everywhere. But the Mets only have themselves to blame at this point. And frustration, I think, is the key word, because they controlled their destiny for 98% of this long 6-month season and are now foregoing it at the very last second. And it sucks to scoreboard watch. It's exhausting to turn on the Reds broadcast every night and say, okay, I hope they don't get another 3 strikeouts this inning. But that is the position that the Mets are in with 6 games to go here. So it's hard to characterize it all, but we're doing our best here.
Yeah, I think you hit on the key points. Like you're getting performances when you need them, but they're finding ways to lose. They keep finding new ways to lose. I thought it was interesting to go back to Manaea starting and Clay coming out of the bullpen. It makes sense because Clay was a reliever his whole career, basically, over the last majority of his years in the big leagues. But Manaea, the Clay start, the Manaea followed, looked so good. And I don't know.
Why change it?
Why change it?
Why
I guess give Manaea a chance to get back in the road. I don't know why, but that bothered me. And, and it can be justified. Wholeheartedly.
I think the justification is that it's a very left-handed Nationals lineup, but like the logic applies. Like if Manaea comes in the 5th, it's still a left-handed lineup, like it doesn't mean that you need to punch the ticket early. I don't know. It bothered me too. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, but I think, one of your notes, your questions here are coach's safety and hot seat kind of thing. I don't think Mendoza's anywhere close to being fired. And I still believe in Hefner and what they've got going, but there's doubt there now. There's with the rotation and decision making, Stearns has looked. We talked about it in spring training. Like this team's weakest point was its starting rotation. They came out on fire. They were the best rotation in baseball for 2 months?
Yeah, 2 full months.
And to me, it's player performance wholeheartedly. You can't circle a coach and be like, this guy needs to be out by any means. You've got players that should perform, and they just simply aren't in crucial situations. And for this stretch run, you can't have those hiccups. You can't have, being a reliever is really hard. You have to be reliable. And we've seen it in guys like Stanek who show up, Helsley on the other, the extreme end of it. You have to be able to have if you get beat, you got to get beat by the hitter.
Yeah.
That's reliability. If you get beat, but you can't beat yourself. And they've had not just from the pitching staff and the bullpen, they beat themselves in every aspect of the game in certain points and in crucial games. It's just frustrating.
And you brought something up before about the Manaea starting the game over Holmes, which is sort of a microcosm of, I think, what has been a larger issue with this team. When you think about the constant things on the 2025 Mets, what comes to mind for me is Diaz gets the ball in the 9th for a save opportunity. Lindor leads off, Soto hits second. Outside of that, I feel like this year there's been a lot of tinkering, a lot of rotating chess pieces. And last year, it was a thing that really worked for the Mets, where they found Lindor in the leadoff spot. They found Vientos higher up in the lineup, all that stuff. It feels like the lack of consistency on a day-to-day basis, going even as further as like playing time. Like Brett Beatty didn't play for 2 weeks in the middle of September when he was one of our best hitters. Like that's another example of just, there's been no consistency in roles on this team outside of like the stars on this team. And it's frustrating to watch as a fan, because I know this team didn't do well in the postseason, but when you think of the 2022 Mets under Buck Showalter, it felt like that lineup card was the same every day for 6 months. And I really do think it helped that team find its groove and get into a consistent model. It's been frustrating to watch that unfold. And sure, that comes down to coaching. And I think the bottom line is, if the Mets don't come away with a pair of series wins in these last 6 games, because the Reds' path is not very difficult at this juncture, if they can't come out with at least a 4-2 record in these last 6, a lot's going to change for this team. They have a lot of guys off the books in free agency. They've had a lot of coaches on this staff since 2019, 2022, like a long period of time. for coach sustainability, that I think you are going to see a lot of turnover. And I think that there is pressure on David Stearns, who, when you look back on it, had a bad offseason. He signed Juan Soto. He brought back Pete Alonso. That's great. A lot of the other moves he made that were not the margin moves that we've talked about for, the guys that are up and down from AAA have been bad. Like the Frankie Montas signing is nothing short of a disaster for this team. And the list goes beyond that I don't know. As a Mets fan, if this team ekes out a playoff spot and who knows what they do in October, if things don't change after that, what is the feeling as a fan? Like, because at this point, for me, watching this entire season, as frustrating as it's been, I need to see things change. I don't necessarily think that that's firing the manager. I don't think Carlos Mendoza is the forefront of all the Mets problems. I think he's a very minor part of it, in fact. But I do need, as a fan in satisfaction, I need to see things change between seasons. I don't know how you feel, though.
What kind of changes are you looking for?
Coaching staff. I mean, maybe it is, sending Pete Alonso off into the sunset just to see a key piece of this team change. Maybe it's trading away guys that have been here for a long time. I just think that what it comes down to for me is like, we'll never know. Maybe we'll get some stories in the offseason, but I think that there might be a culture issue. Maybe there's a clubhouse issue. Like the tenor of the players in this horrible stretch of baseball has not been there. I haven't seen intensity. I haven't seen urgency. I haven't seen a lot of emotion, really, outside of Francisco Lindor yelling when someone hits a home run lately. That I need something from that 2024 team back, that the vigor that they played with down the stretch that I really thought was going to be sustainable for this team.
You want to find some fire. I dig that, and that's fair. Mendoza's not going anywhere. I would absolutely. I feel like this is your guy, but he is a young manager.
Right.
I think culture is something that stems from the coaching staff down. As far as you try to keep an even temper and even personality. You need that day to day. But I would like to see some fire out of some other guys. I was really excited by when the young guys came up in the rotation, that kind of invigorating, aspect of it. I think, Pete Alonso is having a great season. I think he's at 37 home runs, 100. He was leading the league in RBI, but he's at 122. Juan Soto's had just a spectacular year. It's been incredible to watch him. The 35 stolen bases that he has blows my mind.
I mean, you're staring down the barrel of wasting that season. That is frustrating is the word.
Yeah. But I think David Stearns does deserve some conversation here. Montas was a disaster. I'll take some of that, and because I still like the signing. You never know. You can't go back and look at injuries and how they brought him back, but he was atrocious, and there's no arguing against that. Minaya, minus the injury, was he worthy of that contract of these years? They're going to have to make some moves. I imagine them moving on from Montas, trying to figure out how to eat that contract. They didn't bring in a big starter. They didn't bring in a guy that I thought they needed to bring in. You've seen what Max Fried has done for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't, I don't know. That contract is enormous. We'll see how it ages. It's interesting, but like Jose Siri was a disaster that I called out. I mean, that is not the kind of guy you need to have in there. You can't strike out.
He had one of the worst games of the season on Friday, too. I mean, that was just all around. I texted you during the game, and I was like, you clocked that way early. Because part of it was exciting, like the base running for me, but my God, that was horrible
And
to
we
watch.
saw it in spring training. I mean, he went all of spring training basically without making contact. Like that blew my mind.
That was tools
and no
over
adjustments.
That was tools over talent. I think that move was. And that's what Stearns has built a rapport of, especially with this time in Milwaukee. But you need ball players on this team, man. I need guys that can put the ball in play.
Yeah, the Mullins trade was questionable. I still think he did the right thing in the bullpen. It has not worked out.
Yeah, I'm not
Helsley
going to
has
blame
been
him
a
for the Helsley
disaster.
move. I'll never blame him for the Helsley move. You can't predict that kind of thing happening.
Yeah, like Siri coming over and playing to who he is and being like the worst version of himself. But he was, I mean, his batting average last year was sub 200.
Yeah.
So you can't expect something different unless you change his approach. And he never, there was no adjustments made from Siri's side. Again, injury withstanding, but that was that. It's been tough. The rotation holes are something that deserve some scrutiny. It's been an issue and it remains an issue. But the team, Alvarez looks really good.
Yeah.
He looks comfortable. Vientos, you don't know the regression back to hitting 235 with pop on occasion. I don't know what the answer is, but we will see change. This is an off-season conversation, but regardless, the makeup of this team will be vastly different, and they will approach spring training differently. I think they'll try to establish an identity, not just player-driven, because I think they gave them a lot of leeway and a lot of runway to try to figure out who they are from. Like the effort hasn't ever been questioned. These guys are
Yeah.
professionals and they performed that way. But maybe it is a mentality. Maybe it is a mindset of let's find ways to win. I don't know what the answer is, but we will see some changes for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like safety for next year, I think you can put obviously Soto and Lindor contracted forever. Nimmo as
You want
well.
to get in? You want to get into the let's do it.
I mean, unless they have a great week this week and the entire discussion shifts, and you'll see a very different podcast later in the week.
We'll
if
have
that's the
we'll
case.
have another version of this or
Yes.
multiple moving forward.
This will be
but
the
yeah.
entire offseason, really. And I think it is
Correct.
going to be, maybe not in the money spending way, but it's going to be an active offseason for the Mets in terms of how much they change the personnel. But you talked a lot about the pitching. They're tied up in pitching. I mean, Minaya and Holmes are contracted. They have these three young kids that they're excited about. Kodai Senga's contracted. That's 6 starting pitchers right there. I mean, do you sign another and move one? There's some questions there. They're going to have to completely rebuild this bullpen. They might lose Diaz, who has a player option that if I'm him, I would certainly opt out of because I think I can score a way bigger deal. It would come down to if Diaz just wants to stay above all else. Basically, no one in the bullpen right now might be back next year. That's a potential realistic option. In terms of position players, I think they're confident in Beatty as a part of the future. He's had a really nice year. Soto and Lindor, obviously, but Marte's a free agent. Alonso, potential free agent. Mark Vientos has 1 month this year with an OPS over 700. I wouldn't consider him safe by any means. He's completely regressed in September again. He had a bad ejection in the final game of this series too, which can't
Tough.
happen.
That was hard to watch.
Cannot happen. I know I on the replay, it was close. I think he did go. Can't happen. Like at that
Can't
point.
get tossed there.
No way. Like, and that's
But-
the body language has been an issue all year for him too.
Yeah, I think I still believe in Vientos. I think you talked about Pete Alonso. If they move on, if Pete opts out or opts in, that's kind of out of their hands.
Yeah.
But I could see them sliding Vientos to first base and playing it off there because another one you mentioned is Jeff McNeil. Jeff has been fine.
Yeah.
He's had a solid season. His power that we were talking about kind of went away. The 12 home runs, 19 doubles, slugging just over 400. He has an OPS of plus of 115. He's had a good year.
That's all I need from Jeff.
But is it good enough to block
Right.
some of those young guys?
Now that you have
figure
some of this
out-
value back, do you trade him as well? Like there's a lot of things and maneuvering the Mets can do this offseason.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Alvarez is the guy. You'll need a solid backup. I could see them bringing Terens. I think he's still under control. That
Yeah,
seems
he's got
like
arb, I
the
think.
obvious fit because he does great job behind the plate. But there are some issues out there. I'm interested to see what Diaz does. It's
too.
up in the air. He's a loyal guy. I know he'll look at it like he missed a season with the injury that cost the Mets some. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Um, the financial move would probably easily be for him to opt out and to go test the free market.
I mean, technically, if he opts in, he's taking a pay cut because he's 21.5
Correct.
this year, and he would be 18.5 the next 2 years.
Yeah, I can see them reworking that somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we're going to see some changes. Definitely. You got to find spot in that rotation for McLean's locked in. McLean will, unless he, gets fat this offseason and rests on his laurels and forgets how to work, which I
9
don't see
starts, I'm
happening.
a
He's
star.
there.
Let's go. I'm done.
I could see Sproat being locked in. I
Yeah.
think Jonathan still needs some seasoning, but he's on the line there. They have to eat that Montas contract. They can't bring him back and hold up that spot. I think
I mean,
Clay
he's out
Holmes
for
is-
all of next year anyway. I think that's just, he's going to be paid to rehab at this point.
Yep. So who knows what happens? But Clay Holmes is in there. Senga is in your rotation because his upside is what it is. But outside of that, man, you've got wide open.
The word you used there was upside, and that's why this conversation is so interesting, because when we talk about all these players and who could go and who could stay, they're all incredibly talented. Like, this team should definitely be a playoff team. And you're going to see it this week on whether or not, in my opinion, I think you're going to see it this week on whether or not these guys want to stay together and keep this roster together, because it's in their hands still. I know that they don't control their destiny, but if they go out there and they bang the ball around and they get these good pitching performances against a playoff team and against the Marlins, who, by the way, are like 2 games behind us or something, like they're very close. They've been playing really good ball. The Mets have to go out there and prove it. And I think it is a good litmus test for if this team is going to be involved in October, can they win these crucial games? But it's such an interesting discussion because up and down, like all the guys we haven't even mentioned Peterson, who I was talking about. We need to extend this guy after his first half, and he's completely, fallen off a cliff in the second half. What do you do with that? The Mets feel like they have a bunch of players that are good for 81 games and bad for the other 81, but everything evens out in the end. So the numbers don't tell the true story. But either way, and every Mets fan knows this, but there's going to be turnover. There's going to be change with this team. But the way they can avoid it is winning a lot of these next 6 games, and it's not going to be easy for our New York Mets. They go to Wrigley. In fact, they're already there. They're starting the series tonight. They are getting the 3 best starting pitchers on the Cubs, and they are getting the 3 best starting pitchers on the Marlins. They got Cade Horton, who has been the best pitcher in baseball the entire second half. He's probably going to be your National League Rookie of the Year. They have Matthew Boyd in Game 2, which has to be the guy that everyone wishes they signed this offseason for 2 years and 20 whatever it was, because he's been unbelievable. And this Mets offense has not been good against southpaws. And they got Shota Imanaga in the final game, who Shota has had a good year. The Mets really hit him last year. You remember that day game at Wrigley where I think they popped 5 or 6 homers on him? That was the first time he ever really got knocked around. Those are the 3 that they'll be facing, and they'll send David Peterson, Jonah Tong, and Nolan McLean. And the 3 that follow, Sandy Alcantara, who I don't think the Mets have ever had a good offensive performance against, Yuri Perez, and Edward Cabrera of the Marlins. The only starter in this probable list that is slated to make 2 starts is the guy going tonight, David Peterson, who I think is probably, at least on the pitching side, the biggest X factor for this next week of Mets baseball, because we haven't gotten that reliable David Peterson outing in quite a long time. And boy, would it be a great time for him to find that early season form and give the Mets not only some length, but some quality as well.
Yeah, this is one of those hero performances where the team needs you to go out and throw up some zeros, man, and to avoid a big crooked number when you do give up a run. This is a lineup that's righty heavy, and he struggled against righties this year, but their righties aren't scary, Left on left, their best hitter is still Kyle Stowers, right?
For the Marlins, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's a lefty, so that should negate that some. But really, it's the starting pitching matchup. Sandy is coming off Tommy John where he missed a ton and he's had some absolute crazy ups and downs. He's at almost 170 innings now after zero. I think that's what we're running into with Peterson, missing time. Yuri Perez is still one of the most exciting pitchers to see what comes of him. He's had a solid year. And then Edward Cabrera has been a revelation for them. He's been elite. So this is a tough matchup against a team that always plays you tough, but you have to win that. You can't do the same thing you did with the Nationals and let games get away from you. It's going to be tough, but you have to beat the Marlins at least 2 out of 3.
You got to prove you belong. I mean, you got to win the Cubs series too. I don't care what's said about their season.
100%. You have to win that series, but you have to possibly sweep. You got to put pressure, man. You got to put pressure on the Reds now. This is a win everything. This is all hands on deck for the last few games. You push, Edwin Diaz to go. He might pitch in every game. Who knows what's going on? But you gotta win. This is now backs against the wall. Game 7 every game. Let's see how it's managed. What they do on the base paths, if they bunt, that kind of stuff. But you're gonna see quick hooks everywhere. You should see pinch runners at any given point. Gotta win. You can't let the Marlins beat you.
Yeah, I mean, play small ball, do situational hitting. One thing I'd love to see is I would love the same lineup for all 6 of these games. Give me Tyrone Taylor out in center, Cedric and Jose Siri, let them ride the bench for the rest of the season. It is what it is. Chalk it up. They haven't been what you thought they would be. Let Vientos DH. Let Brett play every day. Play Jeff in center if you have to get an extra bat in there, whatever. Just give me some semblance of consistency to support this pitching staff going forward. With the Cubs, they're not really playing for anything. They have the top wildcard seed that they need to protect. They have a 2.5 game lead. The Padres are playing hungover today. I don't think they're going to win today's ball game if I were a betting man. The Mets are playing a team that has their future basically set in stone. They know what they're going to be doing next week. With the Reds, you force yourself into scoreboard watching. They're playing the Pittsburgh Pirates this week, which is as bad of a draw as you could possibly get. The saving grace is that the Pirates are a good starting pitching team. It's basically a very similar team that they're facing, a bad offensive team that rests their laurels on starting pitching, and they will have Paul Skeens go in that matchup as well.
Hunter Green, Paul Skeens.
Hunter Green, Paul Skeens.
That's legit.
Good for everybody else that's not a Mets fan. I mean, that's going to be really fun to watch. And then the Reds go down to Milwaukee, who I believe also won't really be playing for anything at that point in time. They pretty much have a bye locked up. They have the division locked up. You just gotta hope and pray that the Reds can get in their own way. And you know what? I hate saying that because that kind of feels like how the Mets have been operating for a long time at this point. It kind of feels like they've just been hoping for competition to stumble upon themselves and not get in their way. And they're here now. Like the Reds are here. The Diamondbacks are here as well. They got to go through a gauntlet of the Dodgers and Padres, but they are definitely involved as well. And the cherry on top is that the Mets don't have the tiebreaker against either of these teams. They lost the season series 2-4 against both of these teams to put that in juxtaposition with everything else going on. So yes, as much as I would love to hold off the offseason talk and the turnover talk and just focus on the games ahead, I think Mets fans listening and Mets fans watching every day know that is really the looming thought in the back of the mind. But the entire tenor of that can change with some wins in Wrigley, which is a tough place to go and win some ball games. You're going to face some tough pitching and a pretty top to bottom consistent lineup there as well. It's not going to be easy for the Mets.
Yep, you got to win. I mean, you're in Chicago. It's an awesome ballpark. This is going to be a playoff atmosphere. The Cubs don't have anything to play for. They're 2.5 games up on the Padres for the top seed. But the Padres are going to be, cruise control as well, setting things up, making sure guys are healthy. You have to win. They have to be thinking sweep Chicago, sweep Miami.
Win every game. That. One game at a time, but win all of them.
Yep, 100%. So we're going to see some guys that are in the bullpen. If Peterson is struggling in the third inning,
you got to act like it's a playoff game, really. Yeah,
100%. You have to treat it like you're in the playoffs and you have to win every game. We're going to see what this team is made of. This is 6 games left. All or nothing.
Yep.
They have to play clean defense. They have to pitch. They have to put good quality, good style baseball. You can't give away these games. So I'm expecting an all hands on deck. Prove it. Show me what you're made of. Show me.
Make me care.
It might be too late.
Yeah.
That's the struggling part, because if this team puts it together with 6 to go and they still don't make it, they deserve it. They deserve the lack of, or the watch the playoffs like us civilians. But there's a lot on the line. I'm looking forward to watching these games, seeing their character, the grit. What do you have in you?
Yes.
Can you pull together? Can you all push in the same direction? So I'm excited to watch these games, but it's the frustration overall is looming large.
The Mets are 35-52 since June 13th. That is the 4th worst record in baseball, tied with the White Sox, only ahead of the Nationals, Twins, and Rockies. It has been a miserable stretch for them. For some reason, we mentioned just now, as my lights go off.
Yeah, it was due.
Some guy
overdue.
Okay, I got it.
Like
Some guy DM'd me and he was like, I work in like electronics or something. I can recommend you a new sensor. And I was like, I'm not going through all that, guy. All right. That's not
for
my
you.
problem.
You would pass that along.
Yeah, I'll pass it along to somebody else. But I appreciated the sentiment there.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, you nailed it on the head of like, make me care, show me what you're made of, what is in your DNA, all that. Because it would be quite the funny story to have this awful stretch of baseball, and then in the last week just turn up and say, actually, we are the team that we thought we were, and we are going to be in the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me, but the other half wouldn't surprise me either. And I think the most exhausting thing that I've learned from the Cohen era Mets is that I think every year the last week of the season is just going to be incredibly stressful. In 2022, we had the Atlanta series. Last year, we had the Atlanta series. And this year, we're getting playoff games a week away from the playoffs. It's cool to be a winning team every year and have expectations of the playoffs every year. If you told me that 8 years ago, I would have been very, very excited. But this is the other half of this is a Mets talent. This is a Mets roster that's incredibly talented, and more often than not this year has not played up to that talent. And they only have 6 games left to prove that it's real.
Prove it.
Go out there and do it. You got anything else?
I don't. I think we covered more than enough.
I think we did too. Watch the Reds and Pirates game. It's going to be a good matchup, I guess. I don't know.
I'm going to be, to me, I'll be scoreboard watching and paying attention to what the Reds, how they want to attack this, because they're in the other side of the boat here. They're on and they want to take it. They've got it in their hands, but to me, it's all about these Mets. Who are they? Who is David Peterson? What are we going to see? How are we going to handle it? What moves are the managers going to make? Like that kind of thing. So
Cubs have lost 4 in a row. Maybe they're skidding. You never know. They did lose those 4 to the Reds. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Shea Station. If you watched on YouTube, leave us a like, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. Check out Field of Dreams Whiskey down below and drink responsibly, although it might be hard to do that with how the Mets have been playing baseball lately. Also, if you listen on a podcast app, leave us a rating, leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. I did like your reply to that tweet. You just sent a picture of Field of Dreams Whiskey, and I was like, I need more than just one bottle, I think. I need a couple. I need a handful. I need one for each hand. Yeah, that's all I got. If you're good,
all right, man, let's do it. Let's go Mets. Let's go.
It's still let's go Mets. We're not
let's go.
Yeah, like let's fucking go.
Let's go Mets.
It's not let's fucking go Mets. It's let's fucking go. Like, come on. Or let's go home and golf and go to Cancun.
More directed versus
Jesus. It's like I'm yelling at them.
You kind of are, and they deserve it.
Jerry and Charlie, Shea Station. Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time, where we'll be back.
station.